Okay, for this last example, first thing you hopefully notice is it is a little bit different because, because of that x squared. The first three that we've done, those are what we call linear equations. X to the first, x to the first, x to the first. Those are all linear equations, okay? So a linear equation, and we're going to talk more about what it means to be linear and not linear, is something like x to the first. This is what we call, on example 19, a quadratic equation. And why is it considered to be quadratic? The squared. Okay, because it's to the second power. And again, we're going to talk more about that as some review of combination review and new stuff needed for geometry. We'll talk about that in probably about a month's time. So in this instance, we want to solve x squared minus 25 equals 0. It's a quadratic. Quadratic equations can be solved a few different ways. We are going to be focused on solving it by square roots. Now, you should have been learning about square roots, solving an equation like this, 7th, probably 8th grade. And some of you could look at it just as saying, hey, the solution is 5, and be gone. And I would say you're half right, but you're also going to be half wrong. In a quadratic equation, typically, not always, you get two solutions, okay? And in this case, there's two ways to get this equation to be balanced out to be 0. X could be positive 5 and x could be negative 5. This has two solutions because what is 5 times 5? 25, and 25 minus 25 is 0. And what's negative 5 times the same number of negative 5? Negative 5 times negative 5 is also 25, and 25 minus 25 gives you 0 again. This has two solutions. Now, instead of just looking at it, how did I get there algebraically? Well, to solve this out, this one might be easy to see, but as we move throughout the homework and everything, they get a little bit more involved. Solve it out like you would be doing any type of equation, okay? I would add 25 to both sides, start to get that x by itself. And in order to get that x by itself, I always have some students want to say divide by 2. That's not 2x, it's x squared. How do you get rid of a squared? What's the inverse of squaring? The inverse of squaring is taking the square root of both sides. And 25 is perfect. And again, with a quadratic equation, with an equation, you need to keep out in mind that there is possibly two solutions in a quadratic equation. We'll talk about down the road over the next couple days where it could be a one solution or it could be a no solution. But right there, we get two solutions as positive 5 and negative 5, okay? If we had something like, let me throw one other example in here. What if we had something like, say 2x squared, let's see, minus 200 equals 0. Don't freak out. Start solving this like you'd be doing in the equation. I would first add 200 to both sides. And before I square root this, I would need to get rid of that 2 that is out in front. Well, how do I get rid of that 2 out in front? It's attached by multiplication, divided by 2. And once you get that x squared by itself, it's 1x squared. Now you can square root it. And what's the square root of 100? Not just 10, but plus or minus 10, okay? That's where, again, I get a quadratic equation that gives me two solutions. Okay, now with quadratic equations, there's, like I said, several different methods. We are going to focus on by square roots. Another one that you might have heard last year is called factoring. We'll talk about factoring down the road, probably around end of September, October. Maybe November, I'm not quite sure what I did that last year. And then the other two methods are called quadratic formula and complete the square. We'll talk about those second semester. But right now, we're going to focus on solving by square roots. We're going to be talking about refreshing your minds on solving linear equations. And then tomorrow, on the next lesson, day 2 of lesson 1, we're going to get into multiplying radicals.